So at the end of the day, you're running a business. You call yourself a supply chain manager, finance manager, marketing manager, sales manager, but at the end of the day, you are a business manager. So as long as you can prove yourself to be a business manager, you are good, even if you don't have those expertise with regards to taxation, audit, as I said, as an example. So even if you're not doing it with your own hands, even if you're not the corporate accounting manager, you need to have an idea of how accounting works. So that is very important. Now, best finance professional is someone who can take a complex problem, it's a complex accounting problem, and bring it to their grandma and can explain it to their grandma. And I call it grandma rule. People who know AI will take jobs, not AI won't be taking jobs. It's just people who know and understand AI will take jobs. So corporate finance is very fluid. You can change industries very easily. You can change countries as well, very easy, relatively easy. But industry is very easily. Like me doing finance for CPG can easily do finance for medical industry.
Hello everyone, welcome to a very exciting podcast that we have on our channel today, where I've invited a very experienced finance professional who grew up in South Asia in entry-level positions and then made his way through his career journey through Middle East and North America, and he has worked in both Canada and the US. So, and he's grown up from being an entry-level professional all the way up to CFO level positions. So he has got a very wide variety of experience in the field of finance. So we are going to learn a lot from him. So I've got with me my very good friend as well, Behroz Abbas. So Behroz, welcome to podcast, and just maybe let's start by you telling us something about yourself.
Thank you, Jamil. Thanks a lot for inviting me. I've seen your work and your YouTube channel and all you post and share. It's amazing. I learn a lot as well. And keep doing this. So keep doing this. It is very inspiring. I've taken a lot of inspiration for the work I do, for my channel as well, for the things or the content I create. So thank you for doing that. Now, coming to the introduction. So first of all, thanks for you introducing myself. But just to add more flavor, I'm originally from South Asia, Pakistan, born in a city called Quetta. It's a small city. And the reason I mentioned the city and the small size of it or the town is because most of the people I know come from big cities, and they kind of add some, the benefit of privilege with those cities as well. So I didn't have that privilege, which is to make a point that you can still do it if you don't have all the privileges in the world. As long as you work hard, you'll always have to find some luck. But the idea is luck doesn't come to you. You have to go to the to become lucky and go to luck. Anyways, so I started my career with Procter & Gamble. I started as an entry-level position, and within 10 years, I was able to make up to the CFO of P&G Pakistan. When I entered the office, I was like, if I have this role, if I have this job, like this head of finance for Pakistan, the CFO for P&G Pakistan, that would be it. And hedonic treadmill, right? You get there and then you go like, okay, what is next? So that was one. Then we decided as a family to move to Canada, and I had to restart my career all over again. Another entry-level position that I took in Canada. A lot of people come here and they have this challenge of taking steps down and all. One step down, two step down. I took multiple steps down, and I started all over again. But thanks for the experience I had, I was able to recover very soon. And I would say within 2 years' time, I was almost back to the place where I initially left. So not a setback, rather a different challenge, a different experience, which I thoroughly enjoyed looking back. And in Canada, I lived there for 5 years, and then I immigrated to or moved to US. Now, before that, I also lived for 6 years in Middle East. That was also with Procter & Gamble throughout along with my career. So with Procter & Gamble, once they hire you, they train you, and they also try to move you across different markets, different offices, so you can get a kind of a wholesome experience before they give you higher level positions. And now currently I'm in US. I'm with the Lego Group. So I'm head of finance for the US business for the Lego Group. And I've been with Lego Group for around 5 years now. I've been in US for around a year now. And we love it here. My family likes it here as well. We love North America. And that's kind of a quick summary on my introduction.
So one very interesting thing you mentioned, Behroz, and thanks for the introduction, is the fact that you came from a relatively small city in Pakistan, and then you moved to Karachi and all of that stuff. And I just want to go a little bit deeper on that one, because I know a lot of my followers on this channel, you will see they come from, let's say, smaller cities in places like India, or even in Canada. There are people who are probably watching this podcast from a city like Winnipeg or Regina. And then, of course, in Canada, as we know, a lot of people have the desire to eventually move to Vancouver or Toronto. And I'm sure, like, something similar also exists in the US. So if you were to give advice to someone who is right now, let's say, in a small city in India watching this podcast, and they have aspiration to move to, a Mumbai or a Delhi for their career path and progression, what would you tell them?
So thank you, Jamil, for the question. First and foremost, there. Let me tell you the challenges. So there is one element of imposter syndrome, which is major. And I remember when I was leaving the city, my friends would tell me, especially when I was going to Karachi, which is like the biggest city in Pakistan, and they would tell me that the people there or the students there will kind of, or the professionals there will eat you alive. It's very competitive, it's highly competitive, and we are not trained that way. We come from a small town, and the kind of values or the competitiveness we have is very different. So that imposter syndrome, you have to really get rid of it. You have to tell yourself that if you are in a certain place, it is by virtue of someone believing in you and your hard work. So this is one. Second is you have to find the right circle. As Jim Rohn says, you are like average of 5 people. So you have to change your average. You have to change those 5 people you associate yourself with. So find the circle which is growing, which is developing. It's like saying if you want to start a startup, you go to Silicon Valley. If you want to start a business, again, have friends who do business. If you want to have a thriving career, have friends who have a thriving career. So this is what I did. I changed my circle completely. It may sound not so pleasant. It doesn't mean like I left my old friends. I still have them, but I started associating with a different set of people who I knew are going to places or would be going to places where I wanted to go. And third thing I want to say is hard time is your asset. That's one thing which one of my professors told me in my college, and I was very sad. One day I was struggling with the money I had with paying for the college tuition and all, and I went to this professor and I was like, I think I'm done. And he said that hard time is your asset, and I didn't realize it back then till I came to Procter and Gamble's interview, because that's where I shared my story. I told them I paid for my college tuition myself. I worked in the evenings, come from a small city. Again, these are my experiences. And they wanted to hire a guy like this because they were like, this is a guy who's hungry, who's ambitious, who wants to make it happen, and has come from a not so privileged background. So I started using those bad times, those tough times. I won't call them bad times, but tough or challenging times as my asset. And I still use it till date. And that's how I started this podcast as well, talking about it, just because I want to make a point that if I can make it, anyone can make it.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Beros. Now let's just change gears a bit, and I just want to understand a little bit more about finance as a profession. So tell us a little bit about what are the different roles available in this field as one starts. What does the career progression look like? And then I know your experience is very much CPG focused or fast moving consumer goods type of jobs that you have done. So just also if you could touch a little bit upon how different these are if you go to, let's say, a different industry. For example, if I am a finance professional in IT as compared to consumer goods, what are the subtle differences that one could find there?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think there are certain branches which you need to very much define early on in your career. Whether you want to go in investment banking, that's one branch of finance. Like, it's very different. It's like being a dentist versus a doctor, let's say, or being a doctor versus a dentist. Then one is banking itself, which is not investment banking but corporate banking. And third big element that I would talk about, the path I took, was corporate finance, where you kind of are the finance partner for the business in any corporation. Could be CPG, could be medical, could be health, any other corporation, but it's more of a corporation, and you are kind of the finance function for it. You're not making you're making investment decisions, but it's not like you're not playing in equities or debts or and anything like that. You're just working for the finance of that particular organization. Or in other words, as I rightly said initially, which is you're the business partner. So just like how you have a sales individual, how you have a marketing individual, you also have a finance individual, because there are certain strengths, certain elements, certain expertise that the finance individual brings in the corporate job or for the business. So these are kind of the three areas: banking, investment banking, and the corporate finance. And I chose the corporate finance. Now, in corporate finance as well, there are multiple areas. One very distinct one is taxation. I don't know taxation. I can never do taxation. That's kind of, I have an idea, but I have not studied taxation enough to do a taxation role. Similarly, there are other such roles which you might not be able to do, but still make it big or still have a leadership position in finance. The other one could be auditing. So, auditing is another one where you need to have certain expertise, you have to have certain qualifications to be an auditor. But by and large, other functions like being business partner to the supply team, business partner to the marketing team, sales team, mergers and acquisitions, treasury. These are the roles which you can by and large do if you have a strong finance degree in terms of, let's say, what I've done, which is MBA. So if you've done an MBA with majors in finance, these are the kind of roles you can do. If you want to go deeper, which is in tax, you have to do some certification in tax. Auditing, you have to do some certification in auditing as well. But as I said, even if you don't go into those expertise areas, you can still make it to the financial leadership, because at the end of the day, they're looking for someone who kind of grows in any corporation, someone who is business minded. So at the end of the day, you're running a business. You call yourself a supply chain manager, finance manager, marketing manager, sales manager, but at the end of the day, you are a business manager. So as long as you can prove yourself to be a business manager, you are good, even if you don't have those expertise with regards to taxation, audit, as I said, as an example.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic point, Barrows, and thanks for mentioning this, because I just want to touch on something very important that you said, that if you want to grow as a leader in an organization, you need to have that business mindset, because that's what I've also seen in, although my career is very different, it's supply chain oriented, but people who have made it to the top, let's say senior vice presidents or like senior directors in supply chain, those are the people who, of course, were experts in their own industry. For instance, they knew how logistics works, or they would know how planning works, and so on. But the difference between a functional expert and a true leader is that they also understood how marketing works, or how brand management or sales works, right? So because I think at the end of the day, you need to wear the hat of an entrepreneur or of a businessman, because you are, when you get to those positions, you need to make decisions which are critical for the business, and making a right or wrong decision could cost the company millions of dollars. So you having that business mindset is absolutely critical, and thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah, if I can add something, Jamil, on this, which is I was reading somewhere and it was more pertaining to engineers, but I think it applies to anyone who's very much an expert in their area, is as an engineer, I'll use as an engineer as an example, they know how to do it. But for the most part, they don't know why to do it. And this is where the business gaps comes in, which is why are we doing what we are doing? So as a finance individual, I know how to do accounting, I know how to do taxation and all, but till the time I don't know why I'm doing it, it is useless for the business, or it will be hard for me to grow beyond my expertise areas, because I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's just the how piece that I know.
Absolutely. So let's now move to my favorite topic, because that's why I'm so excited about it, and I ended up also making a channel about it, which is skill sets, right? So as you think about these different roles within finance that you just walked us through, and how do you make your way from entry level all the way to the top, and I just want to compartmentalize my question into two parts, right? So first of all, from a technical standpoint, what are the technical skills that you need to be successful in finance? And then I want to also talk a little bit about with you on the human skills or the soft skills, which I know like are pretty crucial for any career path or for any professional to succeed. And that's why I feel so strongly about them, because I learned a lot of those skills the hard way, to the extent that I thought I should actually make a channel and make sure that people have a resource where they can learn those skills. And that's why I say, even in my elevator speech, that this channel is about equipping people with real life skills for their jobs and careers, which are typically not taught in college. So tell us a little bit about the technical side of skills required in finance, and then let's also talk a little bit about the human side.
Cool, Jamil. Great question. And I have 4 skills I'll talk about. 2 are technical side and 2 are more the human side or the soft skills, as you call them. Let's talk about the technical first. In the technical, there are 2 things which are, I think, very important. One is you need to have basic understanding of accounting. Like what are accruals, when are accruals booked, how are they booked, what is balance sheet, what is P&L, what is cash flow statement and all. You have to have some idea of it because it is a representation of how business is performing. That is what you can get from all these statements. So you need to understand all these statements in order for you to understand how the business is performing. Because business is just not about selling cases or selling the top line. It is also about the bottom line and everything that goes after the revenue. And even the revenue, there's a lot of accounting that goes around in revenue for you to understand what gets booked this year, what gets booked next year. So even if you're not doing it with your own hands, even if you're not the corporate accounting manager, you need to have an idea of how accounting works. So that is very important. Now, I learned it as part of my MBA. You can learn it as part of your MBA. You can do ACCA, CIMA, CFA, CPA. There are other various certifications or qualifications that you can do just to understand or know accounting. Some are very much deep into accounting, like MBA is not that deep into accounting, but I have a general idea, I have basic understanding. Rather, I have better than basic understanding just by doing MBA. But if you want far more understanding, you can do a accounting qualification to have that understanding. The second piece, which is important technically, is being comfortable with analysis and numbers. And I think this is not just specific to finance. Probably this applies to others as well, other functions as well, even supply chain or marketing or sales. But it is very important for finance individual. And what I mean here is knowing how to calculate, let's say, NPVs and ROIs and investment payouts, some basic ratios, understanding of those ratios, and then being comfortable with large set of data, which is how do you take large set of data and simplify it and gather what you want, bring insights from it. So being able to play with numbers, being comfortable with Excel, by the way, is also important. And if depends on which kind of organization you work with, now how data analytics is becoming even a bigger backbone for any company. Like there are other tools like SQL and others tools as well, which you should get familiar with in terms of knowing those tools and systems so you can play with the numbers. I played with the numbers on Excel, but I'm kind of old school. But now there are better tools which are available, and I've kind of also trained myself on those tools, which I think are very important. But it depends on which organization you are and which organization uses which kind of tools. So it's important you get yourself familiar with those tools. So these are the technical, the hard skills. Let's talk about the soft skills. In soft skills, there are 2 things. One is communication. The best finance professional is someone who can take a complex problem, let's say it's a complex accounting problem, and bring it to their grandma and can explain it to their grandma. And I call it grandma rule. Like you can take the complex problem and your grandmother goes like, I understand this. This is at the top of the soft skills for any finance individual. Because you'll have to present, and the reason I also say this is because as a finance individual, you're playing with a lot of numbers. There are a lot of details going on in the background. And you feel like you've done a lot of work. You've created this big model, this NPV model, and so much hard work and input went into it that you want to share everything with your manager or with their manager's manager or whoever is the decision maker. While they don't want to know all that. They don't need to know all that. They just need to know exactly what they need to know for them to make the decision. So how you compress all that information into simple 1, 2, 3 lines for them to understand exactly what they want to know versus you sharing the entire hard work that you've done. It is very difficult. I still struggle with it because when I create a model, I create numbers and I go like, I want to tell everyone how I did it and what I did. And it is still challenging to this date after 17 years of my professional experience to get rid of all the hard work that I did and just come out with one line. And I'm like, I spent 1 month on doing this analysis and now I have to summarize it in one line. It just breaks my heart. So this is one. And second is connecting the dots. What I mean by that is finance is one function who has access to the revenue till the profit, everything. Like sales would be revenue and maybe sales budget, sales investments, trade investments. Marketing is somewhat revenue, more marketing investments. Supply chain would be distribution cost. Engineers would be the manufacturing cost. Finance is the only function which has access from the top to the bottom. So for them to be able to connect the dots, so if something happens in supply chain, in the manufacturing cost, how will this impact the revenue? How will the impact on the revenue will impact the trade fund? The trade fund impact will impact the marketing fund and the profit. So if you are sitting in a supply meeting, let's say, or with the engineers or with the manufacturing team, and they tell you a problem, you can connect the dots and say, okay, how will this eventually play out? So having that ability to connect all the dots, or let's say I was in a marketing meeting and then I go in a sales meeting and I get two pieces of information, and then I can connect them together to say, okay, what will be the bigger impact? Because again, I have access from the top line to the bottom line. That's why finance is usually referred as the right hand of the GM, despite them not owning anything, because I don't really sell anything. I don't really manufacture anything. So revenue, I don't really create revenue. I don't manufacture anything. I don't spend the budget. I don't spend anything in marketing sales. So even if I don't own anything, I still end up being the right hand of the GM is just because I'm the only person who has access to the entire chain.
So this connecting the dots piece is so critical, and I know it's probably easier said than done when you say connecting the dots. So help me deconstruct that a little bit better. So if I were to, let's say, take up a book like Strengths Finder, or a book which is talking about like leadership competencies. So this connecting the dots, at least based on what I'm hearing from you, is a combination of critical thinking, business acumen, decision quality. Like there are a lot of different ingredients that collectively provide you that ability to connect the dots, because it's not very simple that you just look at a set of data and then you say, hey, this is the right or wrong answer. Because most of the times, and I'm sure you will attest to this, that the decisions are not very straightforward. Those are complex decisions which have a lot of pros and cons. So if you could just deconstruct that connecting the dots piece for us a bit more, I would really appreciate that.
So this is how I do it. I kind of play a polar personality, which is once I receive an information, I go like an optimistic person that I have in me and the pessimistic person. So what can go wrong? What worse can happen with this information? So suddenly, this is the first question I ask. Any information that is given to me, let's say we missed our sales target by $1 million. So what can go wrong? So once you ask this question, suddenly the entire PNL is in front of you, and you go like, okay, this can go wrong. And the other personality is, which is slightly more difficult to do, it depends on the nature of the individual, is what can go right? What is the maximum I can get out of it? So if I miss the sales by $1 million, okay, but what is the upside here? What is the benefit here? Can I sell something else? Can I not? And suddenly your mind starts working that way. So you have to kind of suddenly, as soon as you get information, you have to jump to the extremes. You stay in the middle, then it would be hard for you to really find those dots and find those elements. Once you hit the extremes, during the journey, while you're moving to the extremes, you'll find those things, those questions which you can start connecting, and then you start asking the questions to understand more and get more information and knowledge once you're hitting the extremes. And once you are at the extremes, probably you have the complete picture, because now you've done the sensitivity. What can go right? What can go wrong?
Awesome. Thanks, Barrows. And I also just want to go back to the technical skills for a second, because there's a lot of talk going on these days about AI, replacing jobs, and a lot of careers becoming redundant over the next few years. So it's a very interesting, debate going on in a lot of industries. Like even in supply chain, I get this question asked that, okay, what jobs do you think are going to go away in the next 5 years? So, given the fact that you talked a lot about the technical side of skills, like basic accounting, financial management, ability to manage ratios and all of that, what kind of jobs in finance do you think are at the risk of getting affected by this AI change which is coming?
See, I personally think that with the AI change, what we'll get is more productivity out of the same individuals. I was just thinking about this lately as well. Like there was this question. I was supposed to set up a meeting together, and I was supposed to put an agenda for the meeting, and I just went on ChatGPT and asked ChatGPT to put an agenda, and it put the agenda for me. And I was like, okay, if I don't need to do the agendas anymore, I don't need to do this. So if I start picking out the elements or the things I work on and can I pass everything to ChatGPT? Probably I can, even for my role, let alone for anyone who's just in the entry level accounting position. But the point is, I thought it made me more productive because now I just have more time to do something else, to look into something else. So I personally think there won't be any risk to the jobs. As it is said also, people who know AI will take jobs, not AI won't be taking jobs. It's just people who know and understand AI will take jobs. So if I know AI and I can make myself more productive, so I can take more good decisions, better decisions, then I think I'll benefit from it. Certainly, if you are someone who is not into growing and who's not developed themselves, who's not taught themselves or improved their skills, AI, no AI, you will get redundant. You'll lose your job eventually. Like what I studied in my college, if I continue to apply the same things now, they are irrelevant. Like there was no e-commerce. I didn't study e-commerce at all in my college. So if I stick to that knowledge that, okay, I read what the books I read and I stick to that knowledge will not help me survive now. Same applies for AI as well, which is you just need to keep learning. If it's AI, you need to learn about AI. If it's e-commerce, you need to learn about e-commerce. If it's digital, you need to learn about digital. So as long as you keep yourself training, even if you're an accountant who is just doing entries, you'll stop doing entries, but you'll start doing something else because you are upgrading yourself.
So I want to now get a little bit into the cultural conversation, because I think one of the great advantages of people like yourself and talking to them is very insightful, is that you have worked in multiple geographies, right? So you have worked in Pakistan. It's kind of the South Asian culture. We can kind of compartmentalize it that way. And then you have worked in the Middle East, which is a very different environment. And then you come to North America, where within North America, I think there are a lot of differences between Canada and the US, and you happen to be someone who has worked in all these different geographies. So, tell us a little bit about what are the main cultural differences that you observed, and then for someone who is trying to make this transition from different parts of the world, what is the kind of advice you would like to give to individuals like that?
Yeah, because my experience has been mostly in multinational, I would say multinational across the globe, they kind of operate in the same fashion. However, there are certain nuances with regards to different cultures. So, call it South Asia, it is more of the culture in terms of work-life balance is very poor, and there is more requirement with regards to how much you show yourself in the workplace as against the things you're delivering. What I realized as I moved from South Asia, from Pakistan to Middle East and to North America is people start to prioritize more and more. The 80-20 becomes more and more important. And I've started to apply that as well. There were times when I would be working on project which won't even see the daylight. And I would be just doing it because I need to show that I'm doing it. And now, and this is maybe the advice as well, which I give to people now or on my channel as well and otherwise, which is look for one or two most important things that the company wants to get delivered. You would want to work on multiple things. There are multiple things you want to work on and you think they're right. But if the company doesn't want it, if the top management doesn't want it, just don't work on it. So that was the case. Like for me to just show that I'm working, I used to work on multiple stuff, like multiple scorecards, projects, and this and that. And as I said, half of them didn't even see the daylight. So think of those things which are really, really important and just work on them. This is kind of my mindset changed. And I won't just blame it on the culture. I think it's also once you start growing up in the organization, you become more wise as well to know what is important, what is not important. So that is one thing. The other thing that I want to call out is confidence over talent. So it is the confidence that allows you to play on your strength. You may have all the talent, you may have all the strength, but if at the moment you are missing the confidence to speak, to share your point of view, all those strengths and talent just goes to waste. I was playing on my talents and strengths more earlier in my career, and maybe call it when I was in Pakistan or in Middle East. But now I've realized I've seen people being more confident before they even have those strengths or the talent to play on. I think that is very important. And the third piece, which I previously mentioned, is communication, which is it is far easier for me to communicate to my own people They'll understand the nuances of my language, even if I'm speaking in a different language. It is easy for them to translate what I'm saying. But as you change places, change countries, change companies, I think it's very important for you to really understand the communication style of that world, of that culture, of that country, because there is communication is the most important piece for you to pass on your ideas or share your ideas out. So I would say communication is another thing which you really need to train yourself as and when you move across boundaries, because this becomes really, really important.
One question I also wanted to ask you, Behroz, as you were explaining the different cultural experiences you had, was you recently moved from Canada to US as well. So tell us a little bit about that experience, because I come across a lot of people in Canada, especially nowadays. Maybe it's related to the inflation that Canada is experiencing, but maybe there are other factors as well. But I do talk to a lot of people who are interested in moving from Canada to the US for job opportunities or for other reasons. So, what are the big differences that you found between the two countries professionally as you made this move?
Yeah, so from culture point of view, you'll find the people in US more direct as against the Canadians, which is a good thing and a bad thing for in terms of Canada. I remember when I moved to Canada, I would come after an interview and I would tell my wife I got the job. They'll just hire me because they're so nice, right? No one gives you any, like, they won't even show on their face that they didn't like my answer. So I thought I just aced every interview, and I would go home and tell my wife, "Oh, let's just buy the car we wanted to buy because I'm getting this job." And then I would get an email saying, "No, you didn't get it." And I'm like, what went wrong? So I'm saying it in a negative way. It's positive as well. Canadians are just more nice, more polite, but it's very difficult to get feedback from them. It's very difficult to learn and know what you can do better, what you can improve. You'll find in US people are very direct. People are more ambitious here, more hungry here, so it's more competitive here as against Canada. So if you want a very laid back, easy life, not ambitious, not hungry, which is fine, which is a good thing as well. If that's your choice, then maybe Canada is good. If you're someone who's more ambitious, wants to grow, then US provides more opportunities. It's not like Canada doesn't have those opportunities. It's just that you'll increase your chances of success, growing and developing in US. So these are I think this is the primary thing, which is the degree of ambition you have, you can get more in US versus in Canada.
Excellent. And maybe you should schedule another separate podcast with you where it was about the whole experience of getting your first job in Canada and then moving and all of that stuff, because those are very heavy topics as well, hugely in demand by a lot of our audience. So I think we will definitely schedule some time. One question which is also a common question, at least I get asked for supply chain, and I want to pressure test with you if, same thing for finance, because when people make their immigration journeys, right, say, moving from India to Canada or from Pakistan to the US, uh, some of the industries are very much kind of, universal. Let's say, IT jobs, and people would develop their IT skills back home and they are easily transferable. But for example, in supply chain, I often get asked that, is this even an immigrant friendly field? Is it easier to get a job when you move? What would you say about finance if somebody were to ask you the question?
Yeah, so corporate finance is very fluid. You can change industries very easily. You can change countries as well, very easy, relatively easy. But industries very easily. Like me doing finance for CPG can easily be doing or can do finance for medical industry or health industry. But it is difficult for if you are in investment banking, because then there are certain qualifications that you have to add. So for instance, if someone has done a CA in Pakistan, you'll have to come here and do CPA. You can't do your accounting qualification, or you can't make use of your accounting qualification there. So for corporate finance, it's very fluid. For other functions, investment banking and accounting is where you'll really taxation as well, because the tax laws are very different here versus the tax laws in South Asia, right? So if you're a taxation expert, it will be a challenge here. I think by and large, it's more if you are very much expert in a particular field, you're less fluid. But then when you're an expert in a field, you get paid more for what you bring on the table because you are the expert. While if you are a more of a generalist, like in corporate finance, that would be me. the career is more fluid.
And lastly, Beros, can you just share with our audience some of the books that you would recommend? They could be about finance or about a lot of your learnings that you have gotten along the way in general. Like, what are the top 3 or 5 books that you would strongly recommend for our readers?
Yeah, so I don't have any finance books. So I don't read very finance specific books. And when I say finance specific books, I go to the technical part of it, the numbers and the analysis and the accounting piece of it. That piece I learned more from just staying on top of news and overall finance as well. So that would be my recommendation. Just subscribe to Economist and read news. You should know what's going on in the economy. And this is all about connecting the dots, right? So if some decision has been taken with regards to, let's say, these days, interest rate changes are very much in the news. So if there is an interest rate change, how does it impact the business? If there is a student loan debt relief, how will it impact the consumer purchasing power? So having that ability to connect the dots, because things keep changing. So if you continue to read books which were written like 5 years ago, I think especially for the technical skills, it would be challenging for you to keep up. So it's very important, I think, that you stay up to the news. So with regards to soft skills, I read a lot on personal development, but when it comes to finance, I think one thing which is important is regarding communication, and that is storytelling. So a book that I'm currently reading is Story Worthy. And the reason I started reading that book is because I strongly recommend and I strongly feel that storytelling skills are very, very, very important, especially for a finance individual, because there are a lot of numbers, there are a lot of data that you have to talk, but you have to bring a story behind the data. You just can't throw facts. And people understand story, people remember stories, people don't remember facts. So if you want to really hit home a message, you have to tell a story. Even if you're recommending something, there has to be a thread, there has to be a story. So I started taking some storytelling lessons, and that's where I found out about this book, Story Worthy, and that's where I picked up the book, and it's really amazing. So I highly recommend, if there are any courses that people want to take to improve their communication, it's storytelling. Another thing I did on the same lines is with this institute where I went to do storytelling lessons, I took improv lessons as well. And that was again to improve my communication, because we have a very set pattern of how we go about improving our communication, which is, how do I improve my presentation skills? And I think presentation skills is eventually the sum of many other skills that you have. So if you build those complementary skills like storytelling, being able to think on the spot, which is improv. So in improv, they'll give you a cue and then you just kind of think on the spot. So developing that muscle is far more important when you want to really train for eventually to deliver a good presentation. Now, there are certain norms and behaviors with regards to how you go about presenting or doing a PowerPoint presentation, but the strength really comes from other pillars, which is, as I said, storytelling, improv is one. So these are two, but I'm exploring more and more to become better in communicating. As I said, for finance individual, it's all about how you can take a complex problem and just put it in a very concise and simple way, which eventually, or at the end of the day, is about communication.
So, no, thanks a lot, Beros, for your time. I think we will do a separate podcast with you on a later date where we can talk about your experience of getting your first job in Canada, and then how was that transition from Middle East to Canada and North America in general, because I think that's a huge topic on its own, and there are a lot of people who keep asking me for that kind of content. So we'll definitely connect with you separately on that one. But I think this was a great show. Thanks for sharing all your valuable experiences, because I'm sure, like, there are a lot of people who want to build a career in finance in these different geographies. They want to move through geographies, so I'm sure they can find a lot of value in these last 30 odd minutes or so. So thanks a lot for your time again, Beros.
Thank you, Jimmy. Again, you're doing great work, so keep it up, and thanks for inviting me. Thanks a lot.